At the turn of the 2000s, the world tips over. The Manhattan Towers have just collapsed. The dust has not yet settled when already, in the dark rooms of American power, another theater opens. Invisible, silent, without borders or horizon. America sends its troops to Afghanistan in October 2001, then to Iraq in March 2003. The planes take off. The convoys cross the dust. The forward bases rise like metal fortresses in the middle of the sands. But behind the armor, behind the bulletproof vests, another shield is installed. A shield made of fibers, cables, screens. For from now on, every unit, every command, every order that leaves American soil for the mountains of Helmand or the streets of Baghdad relies on digital networks. NIPRNet, the discrete web of sensitive but unclassified messages, stretches like a river of shadows and light, linking bases, ships, headquarters, and outposts. CYBERNet, deeper, secret, invisible to the untrained eye, becomes the backbone of covert operations, of plans classified secret and beyond, into the most compartmented zones of intelligence. In the air-conditioned bunkers, screens stay lit around the clock. Maps update in real time. Drones transmit, satellites relay. Commanders' voices cross the planet in a few seconds. The American military, giant of flesh and steel, grafts a digital nervous system onto its body. It believes itself faster, more precise, stronger. But all power summons its double. And far to the east, in unmarked buildings, in complexes hidden behind fences and official cover stories, other forces are awakening. Rival states observe, test, learn. Russia, China, others perhaps. They scrutinize the giant's new dependence. They understand that behind the tanks, behind the planes, a heart of data beats incessantly. Reports pile up on the desks of Congress. Thick, bound files in which the Department of Defense lines up the figures of attempted, detected, suspected intrusions. The curves rise year after year. NSA officers, with measured language, follow one another before the committees. They speak of the growth of attacks, of state actors, of sophistication. They do not raise their voices, but the words weigh heavily. The military networks are already a target. Yet, within the Pentagon itself, the digital project advances like a city being built too fast. Networks multiply. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps. Each branch carries its heritage, its systems, its architectures, then links them to the others. U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, rises as a vital hub for the Middle East wars. From Tampa to the Iraqi deserts, from Washington to the Afghan valleys, everything connects. Databases proliferate. Servers pile up in tight rows in cold, humming rooms. Fibers cross under raised floors. Switches blink. Everything is linked, interfaced, synchronized. The whole thing looks like an immense constellation of circuits, a global machine. On the theaters of operations, reality is rougher. In a dusty tent, a soldier sets down his weapon, picks up a computer. In a metal container, an officer exchanges files. Time is short. Distances are long. Networks are sometimes slow, sometimes absent. So the Army relies on what seems simple, fast, obvious, removable media. USB drives become daily talismans. Small rectangles of plastic and metal that pass from hand to hand, from base to base. They carry reports, maps, target lists, drone imagery. They are slipped into a pocket, into a vest, attached to a keyring. One copies from an isolated system, transfers to a connected network, bridges the gaps that cables cannot cross. On paper, rules already exist. The DoD has published directives on these media. It warns, it regulates. But these lines sometimes remain a dead letter, lost in the thickness of war, in the tumult of rotations, deployments, emergencies. In some bases, they are enforced. In others, they are tolerated. Elsewhere, people look the other way. In Washington, austere audits signed by the Government Accountability Office repeat themselves. They point out weaknesses, access too broad, insufficient segmentation, lack of user awareness. The words are technical, but behind them a naked truth emerges. The system is growing faster than its own security skin. Meanwhile, warning signs multiply. In U.S. government networks, Far beyond the Pentagon alone, incidents are erupting. The GAO lists them, year after year, in reports sent to Congress. The Department of Homeland Security, guardian of civilian agencies, speaks publicly of attacks on the rise. Intrusions target ministries. Data are probed, copied, sometimes siphoned. Faced with this rising tide, the United States is slowly reorganizing. The NSA, once focused on eavesdropping and decryption, is taking on a growing role in the defense of military networks. People talk about information assurance. Under the roof of the U.S. Strategic Command, they are building computer network defense capabilities. Teams watch over data flows day and night, like sentinels atop a digital bastion. But this bastion does not yet have a single lord. Before 2008, there is no command dedicated exclusively to cyberspace. Structures are scattered, missions fragmented. Units overlap, coordinating as best they can. U.S. Cyber Command, the name history will remember, has not yet been spoken. It is only an idea floating through the corridors, a possibility in gestation. In this half-light, an event approaches. At first it will be ignored, then it will be hushed up. Then it will be named, years later, as one names a decisive battle. For afterward, high-ranking voices in the Pentagon will say, it was the most significant breach of U.S. military computers ever, the gravest intrusion of all time into the networks of the world's foremost army. This shock will become a fracture line in American doctrine, a tipping point that will force a rethinking, a rebuilding, the creation of new structures, new commands. But at the moment it is taking shape, nothing is yet written on the walls of the bunkers. The average person knows nothing. Only a few warnings already echo in speeches. The precise technical details will remain sealed, classified, protected by secrecy. Not everything will be disclosed. The exact type of malware, its command circuits, its foreign relays will be concealed. But the shadow of the event will be enough to shape policies, to reorganize the invisible battlefield. At the head of the Department of Defense, one man keeps watch: Robert Gates, Secretary of Defense since December 2006. He is not the first to bear this burden, but he will be the one who must confront the revelation of this digital breach. At his side, the Deputy Secretary of the time, Gordon England, holds the reins of day-to-day affairs until February 2009. Then comes William J. Lynn III, who will bring to light in 2010 the account of what happened. Around them, the institutional constellation is stirring. U.S. Strategic Command orchestrates, before the creation of a true cyber command, defensive and offensive operations in the digital domain. The NSA scans the flows, detects anomalies, hunts the invisible intruder in the mass of logical packets. CENTCOM, focused on the sands of Iraq and the mountains of Afghanistan, depends on the networks it does not see but uses every second. Other entities remain in the background. The Defense Information Systems Agency, DISA, guards the communication arteries, ensuring that orders go out and come back. The Joint Task Force Global Network Operations watches over the defense of DoD networks as a whole, weaving a web of surveillance. These cold names hide men, women, endless hours, bluish screens in windowless rooms. Thus, the stage is set before the storm. We are on the threshold of the summer of 2008. Years of military engagements have consolidated an almost total dependence on computerized systems. Generals think in digital maps. Analyses flow through fiber. Critical information travels in networks that never sleep. And yet, the gaps remain wide open. Removable media, those discrete tools of everyday life, continue to circulate with dangerous freedom. Policies exist, but are neither fully harmonized nor strictly enforced. The system is powerful but porous. At this precise moment, no Operation Buckshot Yankee yet exists. The name is not spoken in crisis rooms. It appears on no operations order. This code name, Buckshot Yankee, will be forged later to designate the response, the cleanup, the titanic effort to drive out an adversary already inside. It will not be the name of an American attack, but that of a desperate defense, a hunt for shadows in the depths of the networks. The conditions themselves are already in place. An entire army depends on interconnected networks. Removable media cross the borders between isolated systems and systems connected to the great arteries of the DoD. Foreign actors hone their digital espionage tools. Defense structures exist, but remain incomplete, fragmented. And, until then, no major incident had yet revealed in broad daylight what can happen when a simple key crosses the line. No case yet of massive compromise via removable media had etched its mark into the Pentagon's memory. The danger is real but abstract, present yet distant. It is in this silent tension that the summer of 2008 appears. The heat crushes an American base somewhere in the Middle East. The sand burns under the boots. In a modest office, a soldier, one among thousands, grabs a USB stick. Maybe he found it in a bag, on a desk, in an envelope. Maybe he believes it's safe. It looks like all the others. No red glow, no mark, no hissing sound sets it apart. He slides it into a USB port on a military computer. The screen does not flicker. The system does not scream. No visible fault. Files open and close. The gesture is banal. It lasts a few seconds. Then the soldier removes the stick, resumes his work, maybe walks back out into the opaque heat of the base. But at the instant the steel connector touched the metal of the port, something awoke in the machine. Code, coming from elsewhere, unfolded in the circuits, invisible to the naked eye, silent to the human ear. A digital agent installed itself, raised its software antennas, began to explore. This malware is not a crude bomb. It does not seek to destroy, to freeze the screen, to shut down the systems. It opens a door. It observes. It draws internal maps. It prepares exfiltration channels. It is the scout of an espionage operation, not the hammer of sabotage. In the months to come, open-source analyses will ascribe to it an Eastern flavor, a Russian echo, without the official American line ever carving this accusation into stone. The DoD will remain cautious. Evidence will circulate in closed circles, but not in newspapers. Outside, people will speak of a foreign actor, a sophisticated operation, a state hand behind the curtain. For now, the code acts. It copies itself onto the drive. It adapts. As soon as another device touches it, as soon as another system brushes against it, it jumps. It insinuates itself into internal networks, taking advantage of every opening, every link. First, it reaches systems connected to NIPRNet. Then it crosses, by technical paths known to few, the borders towards CyberNet and other classified networks. Barriers exist, but they are not hermetic. In this maze of links, administrative bridges, and controlled but complex shares, the malware finds cracks. It moves forward without a sound. No general alarm goes off. Operations continue. Orders are sent. Drones fly. And yet, something begins to change. In monitoring centers, among oceans of logs and signals, tiny anomalies appear. Strange flows. Host behaviors that do not match the models. Files moving where they should not. Analysts, at the DoD as at the NSA, lean toward their screens. They isolate, compare, cross-check. They sense the presence of an intruder. Little by little, certainty emerges. Malicious code has entered the military systems. This is no longer a remote, classic attack via the open network. The vector, this time, is a USB stick inserted in a base at the heart of the theater of operations. A physical object, banal, carried by a soldier in uniform. The alert climbs the chain of command, quickly. JTF-GNO is mobilized. DISA is called. The NSA dives into the code, dissects it, searches for its signatures, its commands, its control servers. CENTCOM, realizing that its own networks are affected, tightens the ranks. Messages travel to Robert Gates's office. The reports, initially technical, are soon covered in graver words. Compromise, unknown extent, risks of exfiltration of classified data. Action is needed, fast. In crisis rooms, one decision imposes itself. Launch a coordinated, massive operation to chase out the intruder, clean up the systems, plug the breaches. This campaign will receive a name. This name will now enter history. Operation Buckshot Yankee. The first blow falls in November 2008. A clear martial directive is issued by the DoD. A ban on all removable storage media. USB sticks, external hard drives, certain CDs, certain DVDs. Overnight, across all branches, the orders ripple outward. Cables are unplugged, devices are removed, put away, confiscated. On bases, the shock is brutal. Units had grown used to these discrete gateways. All at once, they find themselves cut off from this reflex. Daily operations seize up. How can data be transferred from disconnected systems to remote command centers? How can a critical file be quickly routed to an isolated workstation? Improvisation is needed. Other methods must be sought. New protocols must be put in place. The remedy is disruptive, but it is necessary. In parallel, the vast purge begins. Disinfection procedures are deployed across the world, from the United States to forward bases. Technicians roam the corridors. Systems are scanned, cleaned, rebooted. Antivirus software is installed, updated, strengthened. Intrusion detection systems become more refined, more vigilant. Network architects rethink the boundaries. They tighten segmentations, erect new partitions so that a future malware cannot so easily move from one system to another. Access is controlled more rigorously. Permissions are recalculated. Usage is tracked. In NSA bunkers, teams comb through the malicious code. They dismantle its structure, track its calls, try to identify the command and control infrastructures that, somewhere on the planet, receive or send instructions. They cross-reference these clues with human intelligence, with interceptions, with other known incidents. Little by little, a picture emerges. Eyes turn to the east, toward a state without its name being shouted from the rooftops. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months. Buckshot Yankee becomes a marathon. Each clean system reveals another. Each sanitized segment calls for the next. Yet the effort pays off. Gradually, the networks are purged. DoD officials will later assert that they eradicated the malware and restored the integrity of the systems. But victory comes at a price. Bases, deprived of their free use of removable media, reinvent their digital logistics. New technical solutions are put in place to transport data. More secure networks are conceived, procedures imagined that are slower but safer. The military learns to live with shorter, more controlled chains. Little by little, the initial bolt of lightning turns into reform. The total ban on removable media cannot last indefinitely. Operations require flexibility, so the rules are refined. USB drives are no longer banned, but regulated. They are encrypted, inventoried, tracked. Systems now refuse the insertion of an unauthorized device. The shadow of 2008 hangs over every USB port. In the wake of the operation, a deeper movement is set in motion. In June 2009, Robert Gates announces the creation of a new command, U.S. Cyber Command. Under the aegis of U.S. Strategic Command, this new actor must unify scattered forces and direct, with a single hand, defensive and offensive operations in the digital realm. Cybersecurity is no longer to be considered a secondary task, but a core mission, a full-fledged dimension of military power. The ties between the NSA and the DoD tighten further. Their joint capabilities for detection, analysis, and response grow. In each major command, from CENTCOM to PACOM, cyber cells are created and integrated into operational planning. The digital realm is no longer an afterthought. It becomes a front line. In 2010, William J. Lynn III takes up his pen in Foreign Affairs. He then reveals, for the first time in detail, what had only been a whisper in the corridors. He tells of the infected USB drive, the Middle Eastern base, the silent spread across NIPRNet and CYPRNet. He names the incident, the most serious intrusion into U.S. military networks. He gives Operation Buckshot Yankee its public face, that of a massive response to an invisible enemy. At the same time, doctrine changes shape. The DoD officially proclaims cyberspace to be a domain of operations, on par with land, sea, air, and space. From 2011 onward, strategic documents echo the lessons of 2008. They speak of active defense, resilience, interagency cooperation. They stress that security must no longer be considered after the fact, but from the design stage of systems, from the very first lines of code. Budgets follow these words. The quadrennial defense reviews now systematically incorporate cyber risk. Dedicated personnel increase. Tools improve. In training, young officers learn not only to maneuver troops, but also to read digital dashboards, to understand intrusion vectors, to gauge the consequences of a simple, careless gesture. Removable media, once mundane, become objects under watch. They are authorized sparingly. They are recorded. They are encrypted. Systems physically prevent their unauthorized use. Intrusion detection systems, log correlators, monitoring centers are becoming more sophisticated. Digital forensics is acquiring new tools so that, when an incident occurs, it can retrace the sequence of events at full speed. In the corridors of power, a clear message is sent to the rest of the world. The United States now considers any attack on its military networks to be a major strategic threat. They do not say exactly what their response will be the day an adversary crosses certain red lines, but they suggest it might not be limited to the digital realm alone. The 2008 incident becomes a case study, cited in universities, think tanks, and NATO circles. It is described as a typical example of state-sponsored cyber espionage. People wonder, where is the boundary between acceptable espionage among powers and an armed attack in cyberspace? At what point does code become a weapon? Among allies, cooperation is strengthened. Best practices and lessons learned are shared. The cyber dimension is integrated into joint exercises and collective defense. The shadow of the infected USB stick hangs over conferences, over doctrine manuals. It serves as a reminder, again and again, that the weakest link can be tiny, hidden in a cargo pocket. In retrospect, Operation Buckshot Yankee stands as a turning point. DoD and NSA officials, researchers, and historians of cyber warfare see it as the moment when America understood, through trial, that its military future would also be decided in the silence of processors. It was a catalyst. Without this breach, the creation of U.S. Cyber Command might have been slower, the recognition of cyberspace as a domain of war less urgent. Yet many details remain hidden behind the glass of secrecy. The full technical reports, the attribution evidence, the internal exchanges are not made available to the public eye. Researchers and journalists have to weave their narratives from fragments. NSA statements, DoD speeches, Lynn's article, GAO reports.